So I've had a few people over the years ask me, why did you leave Scotland? And it's not the easiest question to answer, I find, because, well, everybody's different, everybody's got their own thing. But then I thought, this is a perfect ASMR ramble video, right? So, let me see, where should I begin? I grew up in Scotland in the 80s and 90s. I left in the early 2000s. I grew up in a place where I would say most people had pretty low ambitions. Okay, now that sounds like an insult, but let me flesh it out. Poor working class neighbourhoods, schemes, as we call them, right? And I was most certainly from one of those schemes. And we would watch movies, Hollywood movies and that, and dream about going someplace with palm trees, driving a car at 16, and I don't know, just hanging out in a big city somewhere, away from our terraced houses and grey, rainy weather, which it's not necessarily true, but that was kind of how we felt, or I felt at the time. Now, I remember a friend of mine had a very oddly specific dream, and that was to be an undercover cop in Chicago. So that was fine, because I had similar things. I wanted to drink beer on the steps of a house with my friends in South Central Los Angeles, because I watched Boys in the Hood 100 times. I just wanted out. I didn't like where I was. Even though, looking back on where I was, it's a really awesome place. But I guess I was caught between the majority of people in my life, or adults who influenced me, would say stuff like, Muzz, what you want to do, right? What you want to do is you want to get a job in an office and get paid monthly. Then you know you've made it. Yeah, I had somebody say that to me once, and I didn't dismiss it at the time. I was just like, oh, okay. Alright, get a job in an office, get paid monthly. That, okay, well, I'll do that then. Well, I did that, and let's just say that my life's dreams were not fulfilled by that, getting a job in an office and being paid monthly. Now, I think the reason he said that to me way back when I was 15 or 16 was because the vast majority of people my age and his age, who was only a wee bit older than me, probably 22 or something at the time, got jobs in trades, which ironically, looking back, is a really good job now. But it was kind of looked down upon, you know, being a bricklayer, working on a building site, getting paid weekly. I have huge respect for people who do those jobs. I just didn't want to do it myself. So I got a job in an office and got paid monthly. But it wasn't enough. And I think, generally speaking, I was surrounded by people who had very low-level ambitions like that, probably because of the working class background. As long as you can get paid, pay your bills, be healthy enough, and maybe go to Spain once a year for a week, that's it. That's your life. That's a good life. That's how it was sold to me. And I didn't want that. And I think, and this is the bit where I always end up shoehorning Star Trek into every single video. I think because I watched a lot of Star Trek in the 90s, I really was filling my head with, I could do more. I could go here, I could go there, but then I was like, snapped back to reality by going, wait a minute, I didn't have any money. I can't go anywhere. But because I had this dream of doing more and getting out and doing more, going further afield, whatever that meant, like emigrating, I never even had a destination in mind. I did want to emigrate, but it was literally to anywhere. Like Australia, fine. Canada, great. New Zealand, fine. I'm never going to go anywhere anyway. America, United States, fine. But then I would be snapped back to reality. It's never going to happen. I live in Scotland, and my dreams and ambitions are just that. Dreams and ambitions are never going to amount to anything. But then I found myself naturally gravitating to people. Like, one of the great things about Edinburgh, my home city, is it's full of tourists every summer, and I would go up down and I would deliberately put myself in positions where I would get to talk to them, whether I was just at a pub and I'd see somebody wearing a shirt, maybe an American or a Canadian, and I'd be like, oh, where are you from, pal? Oh, you know, I'm from Australia or from Canada. Oh, cool. And then I'd ask them questions about it, and I'd be like, over maybe between the ages of 18 to 20 to 22, I would gather information. I would feed my dream of emigrating, of getting out of my situation, which, looking back, was not a bad situation at all. You learn a lot when you grow up. People have it far worse off than you, and by all accounts I was doing pretty well. But nevertheless, at the time, I wanted more. So I remember being embarrassed by my geography once by meeting a New Zealand girl in a pub in Coburn Street. She said she's from New Zealand, and I was like half pissed at the time. I was like, oh, New Zealand, I'm from New Zealand, what's the capital of New Zealand? Is it Anchorage? She went, no, actually the capital of New Zealand is Wellington. I think you're thinking about Auckland. I was like, oh, Auckland, that's what I meant to say. Oh, shit, aye, okay. And she must have thought some really geographically challenged, drunk Scottish guy there. But I remember thinking, like afterwards, right, why did I say that? And I did some research. I was like, I should have known that. And it's just so ironic to think that later in life I lived in Auckland for 8 years. And I thought it was Anchorage. And there was another time a pal of mine introduced me to a guy, a friend of his, who'd just got back from New Zealand. I didn't know this at the time, and I was talking to him. And this was probably like 2000 or something. And he looked at my car and he went, oh, I used to have one of those cars in New Zealand. I was like, what? He's like, that same car and this and I used to have one of them. In New Zealand. I was like, so hang on, you had a car in New Zealand, you were in New Zealand and you had a car, aye. And this guy looked just as poor or schemy or working class as I was. And it fascinated me. I was like, well, so hang on a minute, you were in New Zealand and now you're here. He's like, my visa ran out. Right, what's a visa? You know, I didn't know any of this stuff when I was like 20, 21, whatever. So I think a lot of other people would just be like, oh, okay, and then that was it. Whereas I was then going, listen mate, you need to tell me, how can you who looks just like me, from a place just like me, presumably from a housing scheme just like me, how is it that you've spent a year in New Zealand? Like, how is that allowed? Got a working holiday visa. Okay, now what's that? Now here's the thing, right? Even in 2001 or whatever it was, you didn't Google. There was no, I'll just look that up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had to go and get word of mouth information and all that. So yeah, it was like getting information on things like working holiday visas from some random guy on a doorstep on a sunny Scottish afternoon in Edinburgh was my introduction. And then I started to think, hang on a second, emigrating, leaving the country, getting to experience a life overseas, even if I have to come back, it's possible, even for me. So what's the criteria? You've got to be between 18 and 30, alright? You've got to have a plane ticket, alright? Oh, okay, you save some pennies for that. When you get there, you get a job, you pay for everything else. I was like, what? Because if there's one thing I'm good at, is getting a job. I'm a hard worker. I have no trouble with that. Not work shy. So that made me realise I can leave. So why did I leave Scotland though? I don't know if I've explained it well, but I'll now frame it. When I was in New Zealand, I learned that people were very different. People my age were much more positive minded. They wouldn't even think twice about just jumping on a plane to London for a year and then coming back to New Zealand. Whereas for me, it was this huge, life-changing, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I had to take it. Sorry for the sirens. There. Whoever it is, I hope they're alright. Yeah, it was like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get out. Granted, I'd have to come back, but a year. And then I found out you can do the same with Australia. So there was this agreement between Britain and Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, but that one was slightly different. You had to be a student. And I can leave. I can get a visa for this other place. Suddenly, it just made sense. I can do this. But I never actually moved on it. I sort of sat on the idea, stayed in the job, got paid monthly. And then, by pure luck, in a way, I'd split up with my ex and we had a flat, and we sold the flat, and I got a cheque for the most amount of money I'd ever seen in my life. £4,000. And because the house sold for like 8,000-9,000 more than we bought it for, which was, I was like, wow, that's a shitload of money. So I used that money and I sat on it for a wee while, but at the same time I met who's now my wife, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and she is Canadian, and she was about to go to Australia on her working holiday visa. And again, I naturally gravitated to her because she's not from where I'm from. And I was fascinated, and my face lit up every time I saw her. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going. She's away to Australia in a couple of months, I'm going as well. So I quit my job. The house was sold. Sold my car. And I packed it all in and left. And it was amazing. and I'm still away. I never did go back. So I zigzagged around a wee bit. But the point is, I guess for me, and I only know this now, I didn't know this at the time when I left, but now looking back, I don't think I'd move back to Scotland. I might, but I don't think I would. Because I feel incompatible with Scotland. So ultimately I think I was just incompatible with a lot of the lifestyle or the attitudes of people in Scotland. Again, this is just from where I grew up. I know loads of ambitious, talented, world-travelling Scots who live in Scotland, so it's maybe just me. But I know there'll be a few people who relate to this though. I know it's not just me, but I'm just saying, it's not everybody. So, I think, and this is oversimplifying it, but if you like football, and you like to go to the pub, and you work a regular job, a trade, and you go to Spain a couple of times a year, maybe once a year, a lot of people are perfectly happy with that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't for me. And I don't think Scotland afforded me anything more than that. Maybe I just never saw it. I just don't think it, it was just a working class life, living week to week, maybe saving up for a pension or whatever, going on holiday, coming home. The thought of things ending, like holidays, always depresses me. Anytime I've gone on holiday, whether it's a weekend in the Highlands or a weekend in Amsterdam, every time I've come home, I'm so down about it. And I wanted more, because I'm greedy, ambitious, greedy, I don't know what you call it, whatever you want, snobby, whatever you want. I wanted more. I wanted to go away and I wanted to stay away. I didn't like football. I like going to the pub, but not just to get wasted every weekend and have that being the highlight of my life. And a lot of people where I grew up were just like that. And I think time has proved me right, judging by a lot of the people who I grew up with at school. Sometimes I look at some of them, not all of them, not just some people, they might be in trouble with the law or they're just really struggling. And I think, I'm glad I got out. Maybe this is not so much a story of why I left Scotland, it was more about why I left my socioeconomic status. Maybe that's what I should have titled this video, but because you'll think I'm shitting on Scotland when I'm really not. See, I've even got a Scotland shirt on. Well, that proves they love Scotland, eh? But it's hard to put into words, maybe. I didn't want to stay in that situation. I mean, I don't want to end this in the ASMR video, I better not say, but I saw stuff when I was wee that I shouldn't have seen in a housing scheme. Shouldn't have seen stuff, and I did see stuff. So maybe I've got a very tainted, negative image. But things just seemed like I was going to grow up in a poor, dysfunctional, negative attitude place. And I was just scared to remain a part of that. geographically moving seemed like the easy way out, you know what I mean? Rather than. And an easy way out is something everybody's attracted to, right? Especially when you've not got any money. So, if you can buy a ticket out, I know I'm not alone when I say loads of yous would do exactly the same thing. So, yeah, maybe that's it. But now, I look back at Scotland as a place that gave me education. I know how to spell. I know how to do arithmetic. I learned about community. I living in a community, in a society, in close-knit quarters. I now see a forward-thinking country. We'll talk about how the word country applies to Scotland. I've got another video for that, which I'll link below. Don't know about getting that right now. But it is a forward-thinking place. Every time I've gone back, it seems way better. But then again, I don't go back to where I was from, do I? When I go back, I'm a tourist, so everything's skewed. But it seems as though the place has changed a lot. And maybe attitudes have changed a lot. And hopefully there are no more, or I know there will be, but there's less negative thinking people like I was and was surrounded by there. And that I'd like to think that the teenagers in Scotland right now are able to fulfill their dreams in a way that I did do it, but I feel like I did it just by the skin of my teeth, because I know that loads of other people just can't. So anyway, I think that's it, because my battery's about to die. So we'll see if this video sees the light of day or not. Take care,